Watch out for her. Can't you see the shadows around her? My mother-in-law is covered in entities, demons that follow her everywhere. Gabriel's voice was sharp, his eyes wide as he pointed at me in front of everyone during our Sunday family lunch. A chill ran down my spine, and the air in the room grew thick, almost impossible to breathe. My daughter, Cecilia, covered her mouth in shock, while my grandson, Miguel, clung to my skirt, trembling. Gabriel continued, his voice rising, "She brings curses into this house. That's why we're having problems, why our lives aren't moving forward." The silence that followed was deafening. I realized in that instant that it wasn't just an accusation, it was a declaration of spiritual war against me. My own son-in-law, the man I had welcomed into my family like a son, was now pointing to me as the source of all evil. But I knew there was something much deeper at play. It was no coincidence that this accusation came just as I had begun to question some of his actions. And looking into his eyes, I was certain it would not be evil that prevailed in that house. God had already prepared me for this moment. My name is Teresa Navarro, and my entire life has been built on the solid rock of faith. It's a quiet life, one that doesn't ask for much. Ever since I was a young woman, I have risen before the sun for my time with God, a habit I keep to this day, at 67 years old. That sacred hour, when the world is still sleeping and the only sound is the gentle hum of the refrigerator, is where I find my strength. It is where I lay down my burdens and listen for His voice. Our small apartment has always been a blessed space. It's simple, with furniture that has seen decades of life, but it's filled with a peace that money cannot buy. The walls of my living room are adorned with framed verses from the Bible, words that have been my compass through the darkest storms, especially after I lost my dear husband, Roberto, 8 years ago. Above the small bookshelf, a verse from Isaiah reads, "So do not fear, for I am with you." It was the first thing I hung after he was gone, a promise I clung to in the crushing silence. My daughter, Cecilia, has always been both my pride and my constant prayer. She inherited her father's kind heart but also his trusting nature. She sees only the good in people, a beautiful quality that also makes her vulnerable. When she met Gabriel at our church, I truly thought it was an answer to my prayers. He was charismatic, fervent in his faith, and could quote scripture with an ease that impressed everyone, including our pastor. He seemed to be everything a mother could want for her daughter. He spoke of building a ministry, of dedicating their lives to God's work. They were married within 6 months, a whirlwind romance that swept Cecilia off her feet. Soon after, my grandson, Miguel, arrived, a bright light that filled our lives with a new kind of joy. The first few years were happy, filled with the easy laughter of a new family finding its way. But something began to shift after their 3rd year of marriage. It was a subtle change, like the slow turning of a season. The air grew colder without anyone noticing the exact moment the temperature dropped. Cecilia's calls became less frequent. Her visits, once long, lingering afternoons, became brief and hurried, always with an excuse to leave. I started noticing the dark circles under her eyes, a permanent exhaustion that had nothing to do with being a young mother. A strange quietness fell over her whenever I asked how things were. "Everything's fine, Mom," she'd say, her voice a little too bright, a little too quick. But her eyes, they told a different story. They were like windows to a room where the lights had been dimmed. It was during my morning prayers that I first felt it. A heaviness in my spirit, a sense of foreboding that settled over me like a damp cloak. It was a feeling I had learned not to ignore. I started praying specifically for Cecilia and Miguel, asking God to reveal what was hidden. Then, strange little things started happening in my own home. My sanctuary. An object I'd left on the kitchen counter would be on the bookshelf in the morning. My reading glasses, always on my nightstand, would be found in the living room. At first, I dismissed it as forgetfulness, a sign of my age. But one morning, it became impossible to ignore. My rosary, a beautiful olive wood rosary that Roberto had brought me from a pilgrimage, was on the floor beside my bed, snapped in two. The cross was separated from the beads, lying there like a fallen soldier. My heart sank. This was not carelessness. This felt intentional, a violation. That night, the dreams began. They weren't nightmares in the typical sense, filled with monsters or chases. They were worse. They were quiet, unsettling visions. I saw shadows, long and thin like smoke, swirling around Cecilia and Miguel. They couldn't see them, but I could. And in the corner of the dream, a masculine figure always stood watching, his face obscured, his presence oppressive. I would wake up with my heart pounding, the feeling of dread clinging to me long after the images had faded. I know some people might think these are just the anxieties of an aging mother. But my faith has taught me that the spiritual world is just as real as the one we see. Sometimes, it is even more real. If you've been with us on this channel for a while, you know we believe that God gives us signs. It's a young channel, and we're trying to build a community where we can share these moments of faith. Every subscription helps us get closer to our goal of 1,000 friends who understand. I'd love to know where you're listening from, so please, leave your city or country in the comments. It helps me feel that we're all in this together. One night, kneeling by my bed, the weight on my spirit was almost unbearable. Lord, give me discernment, I prayed, my voice a whisper in the dark. Show me what this is. Prepare me for what is coming. I felt a deep certainty that I would need every ounce of my spiritual strength for the battle ahead. I just didn't know how soon it would arrive at my door. The answer came the very next morning, through the hands of my own grandson. Miguel was visiting, and as he sat at my small kitchen table, his backpack slipped from his chair, spilling its contents across the floor. As I bent down to help him gather his books and crayons, my hand landed on his sketchbook. He was always drawing, creating vibrant worlds filled with superheroes and smiling animals. But when I picked up the sketchbook, it was open to a page that made the blood run cold in my veins. The drawing was done in heavy, dark crayon. It depicted a woman with hair like mine, standing in a house that looked like my apartment. But she was not alone. Surrounding her were crude, black figures, shapeless things with jagged edges. They swirled around her like angry bees. My breath caught in my throat. But it was the words scrawled at the bottom of the page in shaky, childish letters that broke my heart. They were words a 7-year-old should never have to write. Grandma and the demons that Grandpa Gabriel sees. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Cecilia appeared at my door, unannounced. The sky was overcast, casting a gray, muted light that seemed to seep into the very walls of my apartment. She looked smaller than I remembered, her frame thin beneath her coat, and her eyes held a weariness that went far beyond a lack of sleep. It was the exhaustion of a soul carrying a heavy burden. "Mom, can Miguel and I stay here for a little while?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Gabriel is having a difficult day. He needs some space to pray." The excuse sounded hollow, rehearsed. But I simply opened the door wider and wrapped my arms around her. She felt fragile, like a bird with a broken wing. Miguel, usually so boisterous, was quiet, his small hand clutching hers tightly. I led them inside, my heart aching for the peace that had so clearly been stolen from them. As I prepared some chamomile tea in the kitchen, I watched my daughter out of the corner of my eye. She sat at the table, her body tense, her gaze fixed on her phone. Her thumb nervously scrolled, and her hands trembled just enough for the cup to rattle softly when she picked it up. The silence between us was heavy, filled with all the things she wasn't. He was using God's name to build walls, to isolate my daughter and grandson from the one person who loved them unconditionally. He was branding my love as a spiritual contagion. Just then, Miguel wandered into the kitchen, holding the sketchbook I had seen the other day. He seemed to sense the tension and came to stand by my side. As I put my arm around his small shoulders, my eyes fell upon his wrist. There, tied tightly around his skin, was a bracelet made of red cord. It wasn't a simple friendship bracelet. This one was knotted in a strange pattern, and woven into it were tiny, unfamiliar symbols that made my spirit recoil. It was an object that did not belong in my home. It felt alien, an intrusion of a different kind of spirituality. "What is this beautiful bracelet, my love?" I asked, keeping my voice light and calm. Miguel looked down at it, his expression serious. "Daddy put it on me," he said, with a child's frightening matter-of-factness. He said it's for protection. To keep the bad influence away. The bad influence. He meant me. My own grandson was being taught to see me as a source of darkness, to wear a superstitious talisman as a shield against his grandmother. I felt a righteous anger rise within me, but I pushed it down. Fear is the enemy's language, and I would not speak it. Later that evening, Cecilia drifted off to sleep on my sofa, the day's emotional toll finally catching up with her. Miguel was tucked into my spare bed, his breathing deep and even. The apartment was quiet, but it was a loud quiet, humming with unspoken fear and spiritual confusion. As I sat in my armchair, watching my daughter sleep, her phone, lying on the coffee table, buzzed and lit up. It was a message from Gabriel. I knew I shouldn't look, that it was a violation of her privacy. But a force stronger than etiquette, a protective instinct deep in my soul, compelled me. I leaned over, my heart pounding. The message on the screen was not from a concerned husband. It was a command. "Don't let your grandmother touch you. She doesn't know it, but she's possessed. Take pictures of her apartment when she's not looking. I need to see what objects she has. We have to identify the source of the demonic entry points." My blood ran cold. It was all there, in stark black and white. This wasn't a misguided spiritual concern. This was a calculated, manipulative campaign. He was not just trying to isolate them. He was gathering information, building a case against me, treating me like an enemy to be investigated. In that moment, everything became terrifyingly clear. I wasn't fighting against my son-in-law's confusion. I was fighting against a deliberate strategy of spiritual abuse. He, a man who called himself a servant of God, was planting seeds of fear and superstition into the minds of my family, turning a child against his grandmother. And as I looked at the strange, occult-like symbols on the bracelet Miguel wore, I began to discern something even more disturbing. There was a real darkness at work here. A genuine spiritual battle had begun within my own family. But the darkness wasn't coming from me. It was cloaking itself in the language of light. The Sunday that followed felt different from any other. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Gabriel had insisted we all attend the service. "It's important," he had said, his voice carrying a strange mixture of fervor and command. "God has given me a word to share with the church. A testimony." Cecilia, caught between her husband's will and her own exhaustion, simply nodded. I agreed to go, but my spirit was on high alert. I felt as if I were walking into a courtroom where I was to be the accused, but the judge was not of this world. The drive to the church was silent. Cecilia stared out the window, a statue of quiet misery. Miguel sat between us in the back seat, his small hand holding mine, his grip tight. He didn't ask to play with his toys. He just watched his father's back, his expression unreadable. I prayed silently, not for deliverance from what was coming, but for the strength to stand in it. Let your peace be my shield, Lord, I whispered in my heart. The church was unusually full. The morning light filtered through the stained glass windows, painting the pews in jewel tones of ruby and sapphire, but the atmosphere felt heavy, charged with anticipation. Gabriel seemed to draw energy from it. He moved through the crowd with a confident stride, shaking hands, his smile wide and practiced. He was a performer, and this was his stage. When the time came for the testimonies, Pastor Marcos, a kind, gentle man who had baptized Cecilia and dedicated Miguel, invited Gabriel to the pulpit. My son-in-law walked up with a Bible in his hand, a look of solemn purpose on his face that sent a chill down my spine. It was the look of a zealot, someone so convinced of their own righteousness that they leave no room for grace. He began softly, speaking of spiritual warfare, of the subtle ways the enemy works to undermine God's servants. The congregation listened, captivated. He had a gift for words, I had to admit. He could weave scripture and personal anecdotes into a compelling narrative. But then, his tone began to shift. The gentle teacher became a fiery prosecutor. We look for the enemy outside, he declared, his voice rising, but so often, he is already inside the gates. He sits at our tables, he shares our bread, and he poisons our homes from within. His eyes scanned the room and then, with a terrible, theatrical precision, they landed on me. He raised his hand and pointed, his finger an arrow aimed at my heart. Even in my own family, the enemy has found a foothold, he boomed, his voice echoing in the sudden, shocked silence. My own mother-in-law, a woman we all respect, walks in a cloud of darkness. Without knowing it, she carries entities with her, demonic attachments that are suffocating our ministry, that are draining the very life from our calling. A collective gasp went through the church. I felt hundreds of eyes turned toward me, a wave of curiosity, suspicion, and pity. Cecilia sank lower in her seat, her face hidden in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Miguel buried his face in my side, his small body trembling. Gabriel wasn't finished. He connected his false vision to the church's struggles. We wonder why our work isn't prospering, why our finances are tight. It is because a spiritual blockage has been placed upon us. The tithes and offerings we collect are being devoured by this spiritual darkness. She is the source. It was a masterful, wicked stroke. He was not only branding me a spiritual leper but also blaming me for the financial difficulties he himself had created. In that moment of public humiliation, as the whispers grew around me, something extraordinary happened. A profound and unshakable peace settled over me. It was not a numbness, it was a presence. It felt like a warm, heavy mantle being draped over my shoulders, shielding me from the heat of the stairs, silencing the noise of the accusations in my own ears. I sat up straighter. I did not look away. The Lord was with me in that furnace. Pastor Marcos, who had been watching from his front row seat with a look of growing horror, stood up. His presence commanded immediate respect. Gabriel, he said, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the murmurs. That is enough. He walked to the pulpit, standing beside my son-in-law, who looked momentarily thrown off by the interruption. Brothers and sisters, the pastor said, addressing the congregation. The gift of discernment is one of the most sacred gifts of the Spirit. But its purpose is to heal, to restore, and to protect. It is never a weapon to be used for public accusation. It is never a tool for shaming another child of God. His eyes found mine, and there was a deep sadness in them, an apology for what was happening in his church. I have known Teresa Navarro for over 30 years, he continued, his voice resonating with quiet authority. I have seen the fruit of her faith. I have seen her serve this community in love and humility, long before many of us were even here. Her life is a testimony that speaks for itself. It's her. Her influence. She has poisoned this boy's mind, turned him against me. She is the witch behind all of this. But then, a small, clear voice cut through his desperate rant. It was Miguel. He had lifted his head from my side, his eyes wide with a child's simple, devastating honesty. Looking at his father, he spoke loudly enough for the first few pews to hear clearly. "But Daddy," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "You told Mommy that Grandma had to stay away. You said she was getting too close to finding out about the church money." The silence that fell in the wake of his words was absolute. It was heavier than any accusation, more damning than any ledger. It was the sound of a mask shattering into 1,000 pieces. In that silence, everyone saw the truth. There were no demons surrounding me. There was only the brilliant, painful light of God, exposing the darkness that had been hiding in plain sight. The battle he had started was over. But I knew, looking at my daughter's broken expression, that the war for my family's soul had just begun. The weeks that followed that terrible Sunday felt like living in the hollow of a dead tree. The world outside continued, but inside my small apartment, time had fractured. Gabriel vanished. After the service, amidst the chaos of a stunned congregation and a grieving pastor, he had simply slipped away. A few hours later, Cecilia discovered their joint bank account was empty. He had taken everything and disappeared, leaving behind a crater of betrayal and confusion. My daughter was shattered. She moved through my home like a ghost, alternating between storms of gut-wrenching sobs and long, unnerving stretches of silence. She would sit at the kitchen table for hours, staring at a cup of tea grown cold, her eyes vacant. Then, a memory would surface, and the dam would break. "How could I not see it, Mom?" she would whisper, her voice raw from crying. We would be folding laundry, or helping Miguel with his homework, and the question would just hang in the air between us. He used the Bible against me. Every time I questioned him, he'd quote a verse about submission, about doubt being a sin. He made me believe that my own intuition was the voice of the enemy. And I believed him. Her pain was a physical thing in the room, a constant ache in the atmosphere. She had not only lost her husband and her financial security, she had lost her faith in her own judgment. He had used the most sacred parts of her heart as tools for his deception, and now she was left wondering if anything she had believed was real. The nights were the hardest. The darkness seemed to bring all our fears to the surface. Miguel, who had been so brave in the church, began having terrible nightmares. He would wake up screaming about the shadow men his father had told him about, dark figures that would take him away if he was bad or if he didn't obey. I would rush to his bedside, holding his trembling body, stroking his hair, and praying quietly until his breathing evened out and he drifted back into a fitful sleep. Cecilia barely slept at all. I would find her in the living room in the dead of night, wrapped in a blanket, just watching the door. "I'm afraid he'll come back," she'd confess, her voice a thread. "I'm afraid he won't." The conflict was tearing her apart. And me? My faith in God remained the bedrock of my life, but I felt the immense weight of the spiritual battle we were in. It was a heavy, oppressive exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. I felt the enemy's taunts in the quiet moments, whispers of failure, of not being a good enough mother, of not protecting my family. One night, the weight became unbearable. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, that sacred hour when the veil between worlds feels thin. I knelt by my bed, the floor cold against my knees, and I finally let myself break. The tears came not in a flood, but in slow, hot drops of grief and exhaustion. "Lord," I prayed, my voice a choked whisper in the silent apartment. "Why? Why did you allow this? You saw his heart. Why did you let him into our lives to cause so much destruction? No thunderous answer came from heaven. There was only the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a siren. I laid my burdens down, but this time, I felt no immediate relief. The silence felt vast, empty. My faith was not in doubt, but my understanding was. I began to question my own discernment. How had I, a woman who prayed every day for wisdom, missed the signs? Gabriel's charisma, his fluency with scripture. Had it all been a performance from the very beginning? I replayed every conversation, every family dinner, searching for the moment the lie had taken root. The guilt was a bitter pill. I had welcomed the wolf into the sheepfold. A few nights later, I found Cecilia sitting on the floor of her old bedroom, a dusty cardboard box of memories open in front of her. She was sifting through old photographs, faded school reports, the artifacts of a life before Gabriel. Her fingers traced the image of a much younger, smiling version of herself. In her hands, she held a small, leather-bound book with a faded gold cross on the cover. It was my mother's prayer book, the one she always kept by her bed. Cecilia opened it gently, its pages brittle with age. "Do you remember what Grandma used to say?" she murmured, not looking at me. Her voice was soft, nostalgic. She always said that darkness is afraid of the light. Not because the light is loud or aggressive, but because it's true. She said the darkness can't ever understand the light, and that's why it tries so desperately to extinguish it. Those simple words, spoken by a woman long gone, were like a cool drink of water in a parched land. They cut through the noise of my guilt and Cecilia's despair. We had been so focused on the darkness, on Gabriel's lies, his betrayal, the evil he had brought into our lives. We had forgotten the nature of the light. The light doesn't fight. It simply shines. A new strength, quiet but resolute, began to rise in me. "Let's pray together, Cecilia," I suggested, my voice finding a firmness I hadn't felt in weeks. Not like Gabriel prayed with loud rebukes and declarations, filled with fear and accusation. Let's pray like Jesus taught us. Simply. Quietly. With love. We knelt there, on the floor, surrounded by the ghosts of the past. We didn't ask for vengeance. We didn't even ask for answers. We just asked for peace. We prayed for Miguel's sleep. We prayed for Cecilia's broken heart. And then, I did something that surprised even myself. I prayed for Gabriel. I prayed for the man who had been lost to the darkness he had invited in. That night, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the whole apartment was still. Miguel slept without a single cry. Cecilia's breathing, from the sofa where she'd fallen asleep, was deep and even. And as I lay in my bed, on the edge of my own peaceful sleep, a clear, certain thought settled in my soul. We were not fighting against Gabriel. We were fighting for him. The evil he had aligned himself with would be met not with more anger, but with truth. And the deepest darkness would be confronted by the quiet, unwavering flame of a love it could never, ever extinguish. The season of mourning was ending. A new season of reclamation was about to begin. I awoke the next morning before the sun, but something was different. The oppressive weight on my spirit had lifted, replaced by a sense of calm clarity. It was as if a storm had passed in the night, and now, in the quiet aftermath, I could see the path forward. During my morning prayer, as I sat in my armchair with my Bible in my lap, the words of Psalm 91 seemed to leap off the page, not as poetry, but as a direct instruction. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Shelter. Shadow. These were not words of passivity, but of strategic position. I understood then that our fight would not be won with carnal weapons, with anger, legal battles, or bitter words. It had to be fought on the ground where it began, in the spiritual realm. In their place, he had drawn our family, and surrounding us were large, radiant beings with wings of yellow and gold crayon. "Look, Grandma," he said, his smile bright and genuine for the first time in weeks. "I drew the angels that are always with us. Daddy just couldn't see them." My heart swelled with gratitude. From the mouth of a child, God had spoken. Later that afternoon, while sorting through a box of books Cecilia had brought from her house, my hand fell on something that didn't belong. Tucked between a book on theology and a commentary on the Gospels was a thin, black, leather-bound notebook. It was Gabriel's journal. My first instinct was to close it, to respect his privacy. But a stronger sense, a spiritual nudge, told me I needed to see what was inside. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was not a personal diary. It was a logbook of his spiritual descent. Page after page contained handwritten notes, strange diagrams, and detailed accounts of rituals. He was mixing things. He would copy down verses from the Bible about power and authority, and right beside them, he would sketch occult symbols and write down incantations from books I had never heard of. He was trying to harness spiritual power from any source he could find, treating God's word like one ingredient in a dark, syncretic recipe for personal gain. It was the evidence of the deep spiritual duplicity he was living. He preached Christ in the pulpit but was seeking power from the shadows in private. "Mom, what will we do if he comes back?" Cecilia asked that evening, her voice laced with the old fear. She had seen the notebook, and the reality of what Gabriel had been involved with terrified her. I took her hands in mine. "We will be ready, my love," I said, showing her the verse God had put on my heart that morning. "It is written in James, 'Resist the devil, and he will flee from you.' Resistance is not a passive act. It is a firm stand. We will stand." We didn't have to wait long. The following Sunday, after the service, Pastor Marcos came to our door. His face was grave. "Teresa, Cecilia," he began, "I have something difficult to discuss. Gabriel contacted me. He's in a desperate state. He says he realizes the terrible mistake he has made. He's asking if he can come here tomorrow to talk, to ask for forgiveness." I felt Cecilia stiffen beside me, a jolt of pure panic. The thought of facing her tormentor so soon was overwhelming. I saw the fear threaten to undo all the peace we had worked to reclaim. But in that moment, a quiet, clear voice spoke not to my ears, but to my spirit. "Do not fear, for I am with you." The peace that had shielded me in the church returned, calm and absolute. "He can come, Pastor," I said, my voice steady. Cecilia looked at me in shock. "He can come. Not for a quick and easy reconciliation, but to face the truth in the light." That night, we prepared the house again. But this time, we weren't cleansing it of fear, we were filling it with peace. I didn't set up defenses. I set a table for truth. I took my old, worn Bible, the one that had seen me through decades of joys and sorrows, and I placed it on the small coffee table in the living room. I left it open to the 3rd chapter of James, to the passage about the 2 kinds of wisdom. "But the wisdom that comes from heaven," it read, "is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere." This would be our ground. This would be our weapon. The final confrontation wouldn't be a battle of shouts and accusations. It would be an encounter with the quiet, unyielding, and powerful presence of the truth. I looked around my simple, peaceful living room, and I knew we were ready. The stage was set. The hour was near. Gabriel Shegu examined as des horas de manha. A punctualidade era uma das suas marcas. Resquicio do homem disciplinado que ele dia parestra ser. Ele neo veio sozinho. O pastor Marcos o acompanhava, uma presença silenciosa e firme que servia tanto de apoio para Gabriel quanto de protegeo para mim. Ele estava mais magro, com o rosto encavado e olheiras que contavam histórias de noite sem dormir. Havia uma agitação nervosa seus olhos, movimento constante que buscava por algo no ambiente, mas que parecia incapaz de pausar qualquer lugar por muito tempo. Decidi que Cecilia e Miguel neo deveriam estar presentes. A ferida de minha filha ainda estava muito aberta, e meu neto neo precisava testemunhar o desmoronar do pai. Seria apenas eu, o pastor e o homem que havia tentado nos destruir. Teresa, ele cômico, a voz rouca, presa entre arrependimento ensaiado e uma justificativa que se recusava a morrer. Eu vim para pedir perdão. A você, a Cecilia, a toda a família. Mas eu preciso que você entenda. Eu realmente six coisas ao su redor. Eu neo inventi aquilo. Oferecia els café, movendo-me pela minha cozinha com uma calma que neo era minha, mas que me fora emprestada. Eu neo sentia mais o frio do medo, apenas uma paz vigilante. Enquanto eu servia as xícaras, notei que os olhos de Gabriel desviavam se de forma quase violenta de minha velha Bíblia, que permanecia aberta sobre a mesa de centro. A sua presença ali, silenciosa e caia da autoridade, parecia queimar-lhe vazio. Senti-me na minha poltrona, a mesma de onde eu fazia minhas orações matinês, e olhei para ele. Gabriel, eu disse, minha voz suave, mas sem vacilar, eu neo duvido que você tenha visto alguma coisa. A pergunta neo o que você viu, mas com que olhos você estava olhando. Porque nós neo vimos o mundo como ele é, nós o vimos como nós somos. Vimos através de lente de nossos intentos. Ele abriu a boca para responder, talvez para se defender, mas eu neo havia terminado. Estendi a mão a pequena pilha de livros ao meu lado e peguei o fino caderno de couro preto. Coloquei o sobre a mesa, entre nós. O caderno de Gabriel. Ele empalideceu instantaneamente. A seu ar fugiu de seu rosto, dixando para trás uma máscara pálida de choque e pavor. Onde você achou isso? Ele gaguejou. Estava exatamente onde você o disse, Gabriel, respondi com gentileza. Escondido, mas neo o suficiente. Porque uma parte de você, a parte que ainda ansiava pela luz, queria ser descoberta. Queria ser liberta. O pastor Marcos permaneceu em silêncio, suas mãos unidas sobre o colorado, seus lábios movendo-se numa oração inaudible. Gabriel olhou do caderno para mim, e depois para a porta, como animal encurralado avaliando suas rotas de fuga. Mas neo havia para onde fugir. A verdade estava ali, na sala, tão presente quanto o ar que respiramos. Eu só queria poder, ele finalmente confessou, e as palavras romperam a barragem de seu orgulho. As lágrimas começaram a escorrer, primeiro silenciosas, depois solucos que sacudem seu corpo. Eu queria poder na igreja. Queria o respeito, a admiração. A autoridade espiritual que você sempre teve, tão naturalmente. Commissaya lur out ras coisas, livros que permitiam atalhos, conhecimento proibido. Gabriel, orientaco do pastor Marcos, comico a dar os primeros passos. Ele confesso tudo a liderança da igreja e inicia plano para devolver cada centavo que havia desviado. Ele se afasta de qualquer posição de liderança, aceitando ser apenas mais membro do rebanho, hamam em busca de restauração. A reconciliação com Cecília, no entanto, era uma jornada muito mais delicada. A confiança é como vaso de cristal, uma vez quebrado, mesmo que se colam os pedicos, as rachaduras sempre estarão lá. Eles iniciarão uma terapia de casal com conselheiro cristão, sessos difíceis onde a dor e a treco irão colocadas sobre a mesa, sob a luz de verdade. Mes depois de quil confronto minha sala, organizamos pequeno momento de oração minha casa. Apenas a família. Gabriel pediu para vir, e após muita oração, Cecília concordou, com uma condição, que eu estivesse presente o tempo todo. Ela ainda não se sentia segura sozinha com ele. Quando ele chegou, a mudança sua aparência era notável. A agitação seus olhos havia diminuído, substituída por uma tristeza quieta e humilde. Ele não mais carregava a arrogância de homem com conhecimento secreto, em vez disso, tinha a postura de alguém que havia olhado para o abismo e recuado a tempo. Posso falar com o Miguel? Ele perguntou, a voz baixa, quase tímida. Cecília assentiu. Miguel, que estava agarrado a minha mão, olhou para mim em busca de segurança. Eu sorri e o encorajei com aceno de cabeça. O menino caminhou lentamente ate o pai. Gabriel não tentou abracá-lo. Em vez disso, ajolhou-se no chão para ficar na altura de seus olhos, gesto de submissão e respeito. Filho, ele comico, sua voz embargada, lutando contra o no sua garganta. O papai estava muito errado sobre a vovó. Não havia demônios ao redor dela. Não havia nada de ruim. Ele engoliu seco, o orgulho sendo esmagado a cada palavra. Na verdade, havia anjos. Anjos a protegendo o tempo todo. Anjos que também estavam protegendo você e a mami, mesmo quando o papai estava cego e não conseguia ver. Miguel alhuda seu pai para mim, e depois para sua mãe, como se estivesse conectando os pontos de quebra-cabeça. Cecília se aproximou e colocou a mão no ombro do filho. É verdade, meu amor, ela disse suavemente. A proteção de Deus sempre esteve como sua avó. E conosco. Mais tarde, durante nossa oração, algo extraordinário aconteceu. Estávamos todos sentados na sala, recitando juntos o Salmo 23. Ainda que eu ande pelo veio de sombra de morte, não temerei mal algum, porque tu estás comigo. Naquele exato momento, Miguel, que estava sentado no chão, de repente aponta para canto da sala, perto da janela. Seus olhos estavam arregalados, não de medo, mas de pura admiração. Oh! Vocês estão vendo? É tão brilhante. Nós, os adultos, viramos a cabeça. Não vimos nada com nossos olhos físicos. Apenas a luz do sol da tarde filtrando-se através das cortinas. Mas, espiritualmente, a atmosfera nas sala mudu. Uma onda de paz, densa e palpável como, cobertor quente, nos envolveu. Era uma presença inconfundível. Santa. Protetora. Gabriel comico a cor de novo, mas desta vez, era, coro silencioso, reverent. Ele cobriu o rosto com as mãos e eu o ouvi sussurrar. Agora eu vejo. Meu Deus, agora eu vejo. Ele baixou as mãos, seus olhos fixos no mesmo ponto que Miguel olhava. Neo com estes olhos, mas com o coração. Nunca foi escuridão a o redor desta casa. Era luz. Uma luz tão intensa, tão pura, que meus olhos contaminados neo conseguiam suportar. E o que eu neo podia entender, eu chamei de mal. Naquela noite, simples chá com biscoitos na minha pequena mesa de cozinha se tornou nosso ato de comunhão. A jornada de Gabriel de volta para sua família seria longa, caia de dias difíceis e de necessidade de provar seu arrependimento com acos, neo apenas com palavras. Mas o primeiro e mais crucial passo havia sido dado, e ele neo apenas reconheceu seu erro, mas finalmente compreendeu a natureza de luz que ele havia tentado extinguir. Antes de ir embora com Cecilia e Miguel, ele pediu para falar comigo a sós por instante, perto da porta. Teresa, ele disse, sem conseguir-me olhar nos olhos por muito tempo. Eu preciso te dizer uma coisa. Naquele dia na igreja, quando eu accusei publicamente. Depois que tudo desmoronou e todos se voltaram contra mim, quando eu me senti o homem mais humilhado e perdido do mundo, eu olhei para você. E mesmo no meio de minha vergonha, de minha raiva. Eu neo six odio nos seus olhos. Eu six tristeza. Vai complexo. E foi naquele momento, naquele exato instante, que uma pequena semente de dúvida foi plantada em meu coração. A suspeita de que talvez, apenas talvez, eu estivesse vendo o mundo inteiro pelo avesso. Coloquei minha mão sobre a dele, que descansava na maquinita de porta. E assim que a luz trabalha, Gabriel. Ela neo precisa lutar contra a escuridão. Ela simplesmente precisa existir. E onde a luz verdadeira está, escuridão neo pode prevalecer. E ele assentiu, uma lágrima solitária rolando por seu rosto. A batalha havia acabado, mas a cura, eu sabia, estava apenas começando. E essa cura exigiria tanta fé quanto a própria batalha. Hoje, quase ano depois, a paisagem de nossa família é diferente. A cura é processo, não destino final. Gabriel e Cecilia continuam firmes no aconselhamento, reconstruindo seu casamento sobre novo fundamento. Que é feito de verdade dolorosa e perdeu diário, e neo de aparências. Miguel neo tem mais pesadelos. Seus desenhos, que antes eram caios de figuras sombrias, agora explodem em cores vibrantes, como sois, anjos e uma família de mãos dadas sob sua azul. Quanto a mim, esta jornada me ensinou que as batalhas espirituais mais intensas nem sempre são travadas com gritos e manifesticos. A verdadeira guerra acontece nos silencios. Na escala de perdor em vez de odiar. Na paciência que se recusa a desistir quando tudo parece perdido. Na fé que sussurra no coração mesmo quando a mente está caia de dúvidas. Eu compreendi, de uma forma que nunca havia entendido antes, que cuando somos acusados